The origin story of The Adventure Is Now is one of my favorites to tell now because it illustrates so well what I talk about in my author presentation, which is how much you need to persevere to be a published author and how much you need to believe in yourself. I first wrote The Adventure Is Now about 7 years ago. I hadn't been published then. I didn't have an agent. I just knew that I wanted to be published someday. And I wrote that book and it didn't get me an agent. It almost did, but it didn't. And so I put that book aside. And then after I finished writing Quintessence, my second book, I thought, well, I want to publish another book. What can I pull out next? Now, I had a couple ideas. I had a few beginnings of other stories started. But then I said, what about The Adventure Is Now, which at the time was called Seahawk on the Lone Island. So I pulled out that old manuscript and I read it through and I thought, this really isn't that bad. It's kind of funny. I like it. I still like it. Now it needed work. I'm a better writer now than I was 7 years ago, which is a good thing. So I rewrote the book from top to bottom, from start to finish. I deepened the characters. I, made more complex plot lines. I added characters. I took characters out. I expanded the code section and the field guide. I gave it a whole reboot. And the end result was the book that Macmillan decided that they did want to publish that comes out on May 4th. So if you are writing and you feel like what you're writing isn't that good, keep writing it because eventually it can become something that's really special. It just needs more work, it needs more time, or maybe it needs to come back at a certain time. Like I said, publishing is about luck and it's about timing. And so sometimes you just have to keep going with something and see where it takes you. On the Lone Island, Milton encounters so many fantastical plants and animals. 13 of them will be included in an illustrated field guide at the end of the story. And that field guide serves as an actual guide for Milton as he journeys through the jungle in search of this hidden treasure. And in that field guide are also these codes that he has to solve. So I'll show you a couple of those creatures right now. We have creatures like the Butamus lamalabi. We have the push-pull centipus, which has 100 legs. We have the tone-deaf warbler, the enmity-amity tree, the yes-no-maybe-so tree. We have the men-you bush, which actually eats Milton at one point, sadly to say. And we have the undercover cat, which actually is invisible, but we can't include a picture of an invisible cat in a book. It wouldn't really be that great of an illustration. So these are just sketches. In the final book, you'll have this beautiful artwork that Cassie Gonzales is creating, and you'll have all the descriptions of those plants and animals, complete with all the codes that you can solve as Milton goes on his journey. So I live in Florida near the beach, and I do some different environmental work related to that. My husband is a volunteer with Surfrider, and so we do beach cleanups. He works on water quality testing. That's just a part of our life is environmental protection issues. So I wanted to bring that into this story. And we see that as Milton really finds himself and finds sort of his place in the world by being outdoors and by experiencing nature. That's been a theme in my life too. I really find a lot of my ideas for stories, and I find peace and solitude when I'm outside, whether I'm surfing or walking in the woods or taking a bike ride or hiking. Those are the times where I really feel most like myself. So I wanted to bring that piece in as Milton sort of steps away from the computer and from screens and just sort of immerses himself in the natural world. And also as he fights to keep that place that he's just found, this very special island, safe from the outside world. He doesn't want the island to be developed or turned into something other than what it is. He wants it to stay in its natural state, and he wants it to be protected. So that's sort of what the story dives into, is the power of nature and also our responsibility to keep the natural world protected and safe and there for us to enjoy, and just because it's valuable as it is.